Hey, I'm Jacinta Daniel, writer, speaker, and host of Polished Gems. This podcast is for the ones rebuilding their faith, rediscovering their purpose, and returning to God, one fruit of the Spirit at a time. If that's you, hit subscribe and join the journey, because healing is possible and your faith story isn't finished yet. Hey everyone, this episode is brought to you by Living with More Enterprises, a publishing partner I am proud to stand behind. Their process is collaborative and intentional. They're helping authors produce a polished, professional book without losing the heart of their voice. Ready to see your message done in excellence? If so, visit Living with More Enterprises and use code LWME26 to get started today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of Polished Gems. My name is Jacinta Daniel, and our guest today is Latoya M. Alston. She is the founder of Rising from the Shadows, LLC, a faith-based organization which is dedicated to trauma recovery, prevention, education, and even personal transformation. Latoya is also an educator, author, speaker, and doctoral candidate. But beyond every title, she is a woman who has walked through real darkness, abuse, rejection, and pain that could have defined her, and found on the other side of all that, that there was a faith that was waiting to restore her. She's the author of Rising from the Shadows, Life Behind the Smile, which is a raw and honest memoir that takes readers through the mask so many of us wear each day, and shares with us her story of healing, purpose, and God's redemption. Today, Latoya also equips youth, families, and communities with practical tools to build resilience, healthy relationships, and lives that are rooted in faith. And she even goes into helping others rise beyond their past so that they can walk confidently into the purpose that God has placed on their lives. So, all my gems, get ready, because this conversation is going to minister to somebody today. Welcome, Latoya.
Hey, how are you doing today?
Doing good. Thank you so much for
Good.
joining me. So
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. Yes.
awesome.
Yeah.
I'm great to have you. I am honored to have you. Um, so before we get into your story, because I know in your bio, people are like, "Ooh, that's heavy stuff," right?
Mhm.
Can you just tell us, who is Latoya outside of everything that you've been through, everything you've overcame?
So, if I'm honest, that is a loaded question. And so I pride myself on being very authentic and honest with where I am. And so sometimes it's hard to separate what you do with who you are, because I feel like everything that I've been through has made me this person for Rising from the Shadows. But outside of that, I think that I am a very um, broken little girl that is on a healing journey. And so a lot of people don't want to be honest with that, especially when they're in positions where people are looking at them and they're supposed to have it all together. And so I feel like I am trying to find my way, trying to find safety. I'm very resilient, empathetic. I think that life has given me a lot of tools to navigate differently. And so, outside of who I am professionally, I think personally, I just love family. I love God. I'm a beach bum. I'm a beach bum. I love to be in the water. And so there's not much to who I am right now. I think that I'm still developing. I tell people that my life is imperfectly perfect. And so I'm never going to pretend like I have it together. And so, yeah, I'm still defining who I am, if I'm honest. Yeah.
Listen, I love that answer, because a lot of us, like you said, we walk and operate as if we have it together, and
Right.
we're all just still trying to figure it out, really.
Right. Yes.
So,
And I think more of us need to be honest about that. Like I have conversations with God a lot. because of the space I'm in. I'm out here trying to equip the youth and trying to give them the tools I did not have. And I think people forget that it's the tools I did not have. And so I still have to develop those tools for myself, and I still have to learn, and I still have to grow. And so although I'm pouring into other people, I'm still having to pour into myself because there's this little girl that didn't have those things. And so I am going to say I pride myself on saying, look, y'all, I can be impactful. I just made a post about that. You can be impactful and imperfect at the same time. Like, they're not exclusive things. And so God is really putting me in a place where I'm learning that, I don't have to be all together to be used by Him. And so that's where I'm at right now, is that I'm doing what I have to do and being obedient and still working on myself at the same time.
That's so
Mhm.
good. That's a good reminder for us all. Now, you mentioned working with the youth. One
Mhm.
of the things that you mentioned also to me was every broken piece and every empty place. You said that you're pouring into the youth that you served, and you
Yeah.
mentioned whatever, like, excuse me, what you wanted, right, poured into you is what you're pouring back out into them.
Yes.
So,
Mhm.
can you explain what does that pouring out actually look like in practice?
So I have developed curriculum based on a workbook I wrote. The workbook is the survival workbook for tweens and teens. And so it has different modules in it that range from peer pressure, self esteem, mental health, abuse, relationships. And so the things that I needed to be taught, even from a biblical standpoint, is in that workbook, in that curriculum. And so I spent some of my previous years as a director of prevention education. And so we taught the workbooks in 38 schools in North Carolina in 3 different counties. And so I started there, and now I have created a mentoring program with Rising from the Shadows that start in September, actually. And so we're using that curriculum, using that workbook to pour into these children. And so what my hope is that especially children in the church, children in broken families, things like that, we can bridge a gap because there's a big gap right now between church, school, and family life. And so Rising from the Shadows is trying to bridge that. And those tools, again, as far as relationships, what does healthy relationships look like? What do unhealthy relationships look like? How do you get out of these things? How do you navigate? How do you know that you're being abused? How do you know that trafficking is existing? How do you deal with anxiety, suicidal thoughts, and all of the things that life brings? And then use a biblical perspective to say, hey, this is what God says about you. You're fearfully and wonderfully made. And so we use both aspects of it, the natural and the spiritual, to kind of create those tools for them. And so that's what it looks like right now for me, is writing lessons of what I needed as a child, needed, the mentoring. And so we had, I'm a little wordy, but we had a meeting Saturday actually with the mentors. And one of the questions that the program coordinator asked them was, what did you need from a mentor growing up? Right. And so when you go from the space of what did I need, then it helps you to identify the need in somebody else. Right. And so we're teaching even the mentors to say, hey, what did I need from somebody? What do you need from me? And let me show you how I can pour that into you. Even if I don't have it, you still can pour it into somebody. And so that's what it looks like right now. Yeah.
Wow, listen, that program sounds so needed for the time that we're in,
Mhm.
especially with the youth of today. Like as I mentioned at the start of this off air, that I'm a mom, and
Yeah.
yeah, like even parents, we still need to be poured into as well.
Yes.
So I am so grateful that you are helping the next generation, the younger generations, because maybe
Mhm.
they can unlearn some of the trauma, some of the pain that we've all experienced and never really had anyone to talk to.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you something. You did mention to me, and I think it was in your form, that you said your biggest challenge has been learning to love yourself. I want to talk about that
Yeah.
because we have seen the rate of what's happening to children, what's going on, people targeting them left
Mhm.
and right. And I feel like this is so important for you to speak to. What did your journey of learning to love you actually start to look like for you?
Yeah. Man, so this is all going to tie into what I did not have, right? And so I feel like the insecurities and all of that stuff started early for me. And so you may not can see on camera, but I have colored eyes, and so they change colors. And so from a young age, starting in elementary school, the devil puts people in your path to kind of shake up who you're supposed to be and who you're going to become, right? And so even the littlest things as children, stick with you, long term. And so the first thing that I kind of remember is being on the playground and my eyes changed colors. Something very natural. Now people love it, like, ooh, right? But back then it wasn't the norm, right? And so children were screaming and they were like, oh my God, she's possessed, right? Because my eyes changed colors. And so then I remember I had curly hair. I'm a black woman, right? Curly hair, colored eyes. So then they start talking about my hair, how it's not natural and it shouldn't be that way. And so I started feeling very insecure about who I was at an early age, right? And so this is something that parents really have to pay attention to, pouring in that love and that reassurance and, that building them up and teaching them how to be thick skinned almost in the world where the devil can target you. And so I became very insecure about that, started gaining weight at an early age. I was probably 250 pounds in middle school, right? And, I was not like everybody else, right? And so the devil then planted people in my life to be like, oh, like you're a preacher's kid? That's crazy. Like you don't curse? That's crazy. Like everybody else is doing it. And so I got literally, I don't know if you remember triple dog daring, but I got triple dog dared to curse. And so then I started cursing like a sailor, right? They used to pay me to curse people out because I got good at it, right? Yes, girl. It was terrible. And so it started there, like the seeds started getting planted there. And then I lived in a house. My dad was verbally abusive, mentally abusive, sometimes physical. And so I remember words sticking with me, such as I wish I would have flushed you down the toilet when I had the chance, right? Yeah. And so that started playing in my head, right? Because again, words are powerful. And so the enemy knows, man, he knows that those things do not just go away. Like it takes a lot of work for words. I almost would rather somebody hit me than to speak words, right? Because you replay them. And so go to that. So I'm just like in this vulnerable, just space, right? Um, go on to relationships. My first boyfriend was abusive, 7 years. Went to, I wish you were dog food like your dad, because my dad had passed. And so he just, would talk about my infertility and talk about, how I couldn't have children. And so clearly I'm less of a woman or whatever. And so as the journey continued, I had moments where me and God were just not okay, right? Because I felt so bad about who I was. A lot of people don't look at the scripture where God calls the barren blessed, right? The people who don't have children. And so we don't talk about in church that, you can be blessed as a barren woman. Um, it's always be fruitful and multiply. And so there's some deficit in us, especially that can't have children. And so, I just felt really bad about who I was. I went through a stage where I was suicidal. I couldn't take it. I just wanted to be out of here. Um, and so God really, really stepped in with me. And so the journey to loving myself has been a gradual journey, a journey where I have had to learn to accept the things that I cannot change. And it's crazy because, that's the serenity prayer, right? And so it sounds cliche, but man, you really have to accept the things you can't change, right? And change the things that you can. And so I learned to change my surroundings. I learned to change my focus. I learned, to pour into myself. Education is big for me. Like, I love education. And so I've been pouring into that journey. I've been healing through helping other people, praying and understanding that life is imperfect. I am imperfect, and imperfection is okay. And so that's how I've become who I am today, but even learning to love who I am today, by learning that God made us all different and our journeys are different. Um, I would not be who I am and have the things that I have if I had not gone through that journey. And so love just looks like embracing what you've been through, your story. And so, yeah, that's my love journey, going to God and saying, "Man, this sucks." Like, this sucks. Like, I don't understand why you allow me to go through this. It doesn't make sense. I don't feel like I deserved it. But all things work together for the good. If you are a person of faith, even the raw, ugly, dirty version of who you are is going to shape who God turns you into. And so, yeah, like, I love where I'm at now, but a lot of that came through prayer and trusting that God has a bigger plan that I can't see.
That's so good. Um,
Mhm.
man, all of that was so loaded. Um,
Yeah.
one of the things that I want to know, you kind of touched on it. You said your relationship with that young man, it brought more abuse and even heartache in your life. Looking back, what do you wish someone had told you in that season? Because this is applicable for the youth of today, but it's also applicable for adults.
Woo! There's so many things I wish somebody would have told me. So this person, and this is just the truth, this person was my first everything. I did not date till I was 20. I did not, cross boundaries until I was 22. And so you have to think, at 20 years old, I was a 16-year-old girl that had not experienced relationships, that had not, been in any kind of, vulnerable space. And so the devil really placed him in my life, and I thought he was a savior. Right. And so what I wish somebody would have told me is that the only person that can save you is God. Right. Because I was in an abusive place. And he literally was like, "We got to get you out of there. Like, this is crazy." And so he ended up being worse than what I was in. And so, yeah. And so, I also wish somebody would have told me what I tell girls all the time. Man, you have to be whole and healed before you attract somebody that God has for you. Like, you cannot be this broken individual and think you're going to attract something good. And so I wish somebody would have told me that, man. And like I said, there's so many things I wish somebody would have just shook me. And I also wish that somebody would have reinforced in me that I deserved more than what I knew. And so I talk about all the time, for girls, a lot of times our father is our first example of love. And so we tend to attract and reflect who they are, or the lack of what they are, and who we get with. And so, because of what I had been through, I literally attracted somebody just like my father. And my dad told me before he passed away, that this person was just like him, and that the devil had sent him to destroy my life. And I took it with a grain of salt at the time, but oh my God, it took me at least a decade to get this man completely gone. And I'm talking about, we had already broke up. I'm talking about stalking on social media, writing my family, giving fake reviews on my work under the name of my father that was dead. I mean, yes, honey. And so, my dad's words, they can recognize abusers and stuff like that. They recognize themselves in other people. And so, yeah, I wish somebody would have told me just all the things, that I was beautiful, that I was strong, that I didn't deserve it, that, I didn't have to settle. And the most important thing that I wish, besides those factors, is that somebody would have taught me what to look for. Um, because I didn't have standards, right? Again, you're talking about I'm 20 years old and I'm dating for the first time, right? I should know these things because most children have experienced all the do's and do nots in high school for whatever reason. And so I'm like, somebody should have been like, Latoya, create a list of things that you that you do and you do not want from somebody. And if they don't have that, they're not for you. And so, yeah, it's so many things I wish that people would have told me. And so that's exactly why I'm here today, is to say, man, the things that I could have avoided, like, girl, let me help you not do that, because it's a tough path, especially again when you're looking for somebody to save you. And so, man, I'm just gonna reinforce the fact that nobody can save you but God. Like man, because there's so many contingencies on what people do and who people are, and they change and they fail you and all the things, but God, man, but God. Mm.
Wow, your dad's words were very powerful. Like the fact that he could recognize patterns like that,
Mhm.
right? And just say it to you when you need to
Right.
hear it most. Um, I'm a big believer of God can use anybody
Oh yeah.
for anything for that
Oh yeah.
reason. Um, one of the things I wanted to ask you, I know you've been through a lot. Where do you now find joy, and what has carried you the most when days feel heavy after everything?
um so I'm just gonna answer it probably as one kind of big lump sum. I feel like I find joy in the little things. And so, too often we want God to do big things and show himself. But in the everyday, simple little things, sometimes God is showing himself, and we just have to recognize that. And so, I find joy looking at my children. So I have two children, Mariah and Christian. And so, um, they are actually my sister's children. She passed away in 22, and so I adopted them, and so I'm raising them. And so while I can't have biological children, God has given me them, as my little safe haven people. And so I look at them and their progress, and the fact that they've been through trauma and they're so resilient, and that God has allowed me to pour into them first before I pour into other people. And I find joy in that. Mariah is in college as a nursing student, and yes, and so she is amazing, all A's and one B for her first year. And so I look at that and I'm like, okay, God, like, she is so resilient in the fact that she has lost her mom. She doesn't have a father. She's living with it's so many things. And so, when you look at the little things that God does, right, and allows me to do, I find joy in the water. I think I said I was a beach bum, and I really am. Like, I will float in the water for 3-4 hours at a time, and I'm just like, it's peace and serenity there. And so, I find all of that refuge in the little things that God does. I look at nature. I have to remind myself sometimes that God is real. Because even at this stage, I am like, God, I know you're real. I've seen you work, but there's still this little humanity in me that's like, what if he's not? And so I go and I sit and look at nature. I look at the birds and I look at the bees and I look at the ants and I look at the squirrels, and I literally, when I tell you, I literally physically go sit on the back porch for hours, right? And I look at nature and I look at the processes that they have, and the fact that birds know how to fly south, right? For winter, but nobody tells them. They know how to find food in the ground, but nobody's told them, right? And so you have to look at the little things, and you have to know that man could not think of all of these things. There's no way. And so that joy reminds me that, okay, God is real. Like, there's no way that he's not real when you look at the things like nature. And so I find it in those things. Yeah, the little things.
Listen, I love that. And God reminds us to pay attention to those things. I do want
Mhm.
to talk about something that you just said. You talked
Mhm.
about the human side of you will sometimes wonder, does he still exist, right? Is he
Yes.
still operating in your life? And when you were going through the abuse or in the trauma, let's talk about that because there could be someone who's in the middle of that right now. And you
Yeah.
said that there was a season that you actually questioned God's very
Oh,
existence.
yeah.
Can you explain to us what caused you to think that way, but what ultimately also brought you back to Him?
Yeah. So when you go through things in life, especially when you're a good person, man, when I tell you that bad things happen so much to people who love the Lord, and you have to almost remind yourself that that is why these things happen. Because if you were serving the devil and you weren't doing anything right, then he has no reason to attack you. Right. And so, when I tell you that we forget that sometimes, like we are like, God, why are you letting it? No, we have an adversary called the devil who is literally trying to steal, kill, and destroy who we are, trying to kill purpose. Because I told him a long time ago, when you tried to take me out, like I had 24 hours to live at one point, when you try to take me out, you should have did it, because now here I am and I'm able to do what it is that I'm doing. And so um I feel like I took a hiatus from God for a while. I did not go to church. I did not want to be nowhere around anybody that was supposedly saved, because everything that I knew was almost a lie. Everything was a facade, growing up in the church where, everybody's spiritually inclined, but nobody could see me. And growing up in a house where my dad was a bishop and he's out here preaching, and then behind the scenes, he's treating me like a dog. And everybody's like, daddy's little girl. And so it took me a minute to just be like, okay, God, I don't understand why you allow me to go through these things. Like, I literally try to treat people the way I want to be treated. Like, I try to live a good life. I try to be a good person. And so the fact that you allow me to go through these things, like, it makes no sense to me, right? Not to my human mind. But again, when you dot to where I'm at today talking to you, I cannot have this testimony if he didn't allow me to go through the things, right? And so the reality of me coming back to God and understanding, that he still loved me, understanding that, all of these things were just a part of my testimony and who I'm going to become. I had to stop looking at people. I had to realize that my relationship with God had nothing to do with people. Joy has nothing to do with circumstances. It is an innate thing that comes from God that cannot be swayed by what you go through in life. And so it took me a minute, but literally my full circle came the moment where God made me come back to myself. And myself is the root of who he made me. I was talking about the story a couple of weeks ago about the prodigal son, and how the Bible says, he went off and he did whatever he did, and he tried to squander all of the things. And excuse me, there was a moment where the Bible says he came to himself, right? And so even in the moments where you think that your destiny is gone, you think your purpose is gone, you can say, God, please help me come to myself. And not who you think you are, but who God designed you to be. And so the moment I said, God, help me come to myself, was the moment that everything came full circle. And so, I went from the journey of like, God, no, we not good right now. We ain't good right now. Like, I don't know what you got going on. I don't know why you pick it on me. I don't know why you feel like, I can handle this. I hate the saying that God gives his battles to the strongest soldier. Like, I don't want to be a strong soldier. Like, please stop. Like, I can't take it. Like, this is crazy, right? But again, I always go back to all things work together for the good, man. And so, yeah, I came full circle at the moment where I came to myself and I asked God to help me come to myself. And so that's where I'm at now, the journey of coming to myself, the person that God created us to be. Yeah.
That answer's so good. I hope the person listening that needs that encouragement hears, really
Yeah.
truly hears what you're
Yeah.
saying. So,
Mhm.
also for those who might be listening, who are still hiding in the shadows and
Mm.
wearing a smile while they do it because they're like, I'll just get up and I'll make it through today with that smile on. What do you want them to know from you today?
Oh man, it's such a heavy burden to wear a mask. It is such a heavy burden, and God did not design us to be that way. And so, if you are in the shadows today, one, I want to let you know that there is hope on the other side. That life does not always have to be this way. It will not always be this way. But give it to God. Give whatever it is that you're going to through to God. And find a trusted person, whether it's a therapist or a friend or pastor or whatever it is that you can actually trust. I am a big advocate of therapy. I actually have a therapist. I feel like every therapist needs a therapist. And so find a safe place that you can unmask and be who it is that you are until you heal. Because what you don't want to do is get so comfortable in pretending. And that is exactly what it is pretending to be something that you're not. And so you want to be able to be authentic. You want to be able to be who God called you to be. And that is a real raw person. And the truth of the matter is, if I wasn't sitting on your podcast in your face today and telling you that my life is imperfect, you would look at me the same way people look at you. You would say, okay, she has it all together. She has a brand, she has degrees, she has, career. She has all the things, but I'm literally telling you today that Latoya Alston is a broken down little girl who is out here still navigating life. And you can have that same moment of honesty to say, hey, I don't have it all together, because I promise you somebody needs to hear that as perfect as your little life looks, that you don't have it all together. And that is a problem we have in society today, is that we throw out these personas of who we want people to think we are, and it's not who we are. And so you have these little boys and girls who look at you and think this is your life, and they are ascribing to be who you are, but not understanding the struggles that you deal with on a day to day to become who you are. And so, man, vulnerability is a powerful thing. Being imperfect and embracing the imperfection is a powerful thing. And so somebody needs to know today, that you are not a perfect person, and that you can still have the life that you have, even being imperfect. And so take off the mask. Like, what are you wearing it for? You know what I'm saying? God sees you. And that's the thing that is so crazy, Jacinta, that the most important person is God, and he sees it. So why are you caring so much about how other people perceive you when God sees the raw and dirty behind the scenes of who you are, right? And if you are not showing God the version of you, then that's what matters. So you need to become who it is you're supposed to be, because at the end of the day, when we die, like, this world don't matter, these people don't matter, and so if God doesn't like who you are and you don't like who you are, then you need to fix who you are. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, mask for what? And this is what I had to learn, and people love or hate it for me, right? If you don't like the fact that I'm honest and I'm going to be real, and I might sometimes not care about your feelings, like, I don't know what to tell you, right? Because at the end of the day, I want to be the same person at church. I want to be the same person at home. I want to be the same person at work. Now, do I have this code switching where I'm like professional and I have to talk professional? Yeah, that's a professional, right? But my personality, my morals, my values, and everything about who Latoya is does not change. And I'm gonna tell you this funny thing that happened a few weeks ago. And it's gonna sound bad. Don't judge me, but I know you will. Um, but I was at church and somebody irritated my soul. Okay. And I said irritated my soul. And I have to tell you, I said in the beginning that I'm imperfect and I'm still working on myself. And Lord knows, I'm still working. But I walked out that church, girl, and I was like, Lord, please don't let me have to cuss nobody out at church today. And I said it out loud. Now, mind you, I don't even really cuss like that. So I don't know. I was having a moment. And so somebody was like, Latoya, you can't cuss at the church. And I looked at them and this is for real. I said, if I will cuss somebody out in real life, I will cuss them out at church. Because in my head, God is everywhere. And I think that's the thing that people miss. Just because you pretend in the church for other people, right, does not mean you get credit for that. Because that is what people see, but God sees your Monday through Saturday, right? And so, yeah, Latoya Alston is not perfect, and I did not cuss nobody out. I do not be cussing people out. Put that on record. But it's the thought that no, who I am in the street is who I am at the church. Like you're not gonna code switch me anymore because I grew up with a mask, and this is what people forget, right? I grew up having to be a fake, right, in the car fussing with my brother. Hey, snap it off, we're going into church, right? And so I refuse to be that anymore. And so if you're wearing a mask today, you got to refuse to be that anymore. If people love you, they love you. If they hate you, they hate you. Hey, it don't matter. But what God thinks about you is the most important. That's the priority, right? And so yeah, unmask yourself. That's my advice. Unmask yourself because with God we don't have a mask.
Listen, I feel like that right there summed up everything perfectly.
Mhm.
So my final question is this. For those who are like, okay, Latoya, I hear you. You came for me. Help me take off this mask. And what if there are people seeking help and need to connect with you? Where can they connect with
Oh, yeah. So you can go to my website. It's www.risingfromtheshadows.net. It has a contact page with all the things on there, my email address, phone numbers, some people that are working with Rising from the Shadows. Of course, you can go on social media, TikTok, Rise from the Shadows LLC, Instagram, Rise from the Shadows brand. And so connect with me any of those ways. I'm on Facebook, Latoya Alston. And so, yes, please connect with me. But I have started a link on my page. It's called Let's Talk. And I do want you to go visit that. And so I have started putting topics up there from abuse into relationships and things like that, that just gives you information, tells you what God says about those things. It even has links on there about where to get help if you are in abuse or trafficking situations. Even who you should talk to if you're in relationships, keep those people out your business that are emotionally invested in one side of the story. It has all those things, girl. Yes, it has all those things on there. And so check that out. And yeah, let me know what you think about it too, but check that out. But that's how you can get in contact with me. If you are looking to just find resources or anything like that, I'm here.
Well, guys, there you have it. So that's how you can get connected to Latoya. And guys, thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. And until next time, remember to stay polished. Have a great evening, guys. Bye.